Welcome back, everybody. Welcome into the DGD Podcast. Riding solo tonight. I'm your host, Robert Reynolds. Guys, the season is underway, unofficially, if you will. And what I mean by that is fall camp. All right. By this point, we've had several fall camps. Even had a private practice where the public could attend, considering if you paid to the collective. But neither here nor there on that. We're going to talk a lot about that, right? We're going to talk about the latest around fall camp, get everybody up to speed, and also looking ahead into this season. Going to talk about some injury updates, some breakout players, guys. There's some kids making some names for themselves, and a lot more. Obviously, the show is brought to you by our friends over at Alumni Hall. Make sure to go follow them on social media at Alumni Hall UGA. We've also, if you haven't been paying attention on our social media or not, we are going through a Gameday Giveaway. And what I got to pull it up on the screen here. Enter now through August 31st. And you can enter to win a $100 Alumni Hall gift card. All you got to do, go to Twitter or X.com, go to our social media, our Twitter. It's the pinned comment, and the link is in the description below. Go enter. It's pretty simple. And enter to win a $100 gift card at Alumni Hall. Make sure to take advantage of it. Like I said, now through August 31st. With that being said, let's jump straight into this. We got the brigade hot and heavy. Jeff Hightoff in the building saying Nate the Great, number 3. Definitely going to be talking about him. Throwing out an over-under already, too. Going to talk more about that later. It should be fun. But I do want to start with fall camp. I think that's what we're all here for. Pretty good time. Y'all know how this goes. Fall camp starts. Season is right around the corner, and I'm not going to complain one bit. So what I want to talk about here is we'll kind of do somewhat of a quick position by position breakdown. First things first, we'll start with the quarterback. I think it's Carson Beck. And then it seems like Gunnar Stockton's having a good fall camp so far as well. Jaden Rashada's coming in. I know some folks were saying that he looked pretty thin at quarterback. Kind of want to see that get some bulk on him, if you will. Seemed to be doing well, though, hitting touch passes and things like that. That's a huge addition to this quarterback room. And then obviously you got Ryan Puglisi. In regard, there's no position battles. I think if anything, you're looking at the backup position. But at the same time, I'm just looking at it in a sense where it's got to be Carson Beck, substantial gap. Probably Gunnar Stockton seems to be doing fine. And then obviously you got Puglisi and Rashada, right? No questions there, just staying healthy. But I do think Carson Beck taking an extra step in the leadership role as a quarterback and as the team captain there. I think that's huge. That is extremely huge. Shows maturation, things like that. And you're going to need this from him, especially moving forward in this season, especially with the road games and things like that. You're going to need that out of him. So it's extremely good to hear him assuming that leadership role and going about it that way. Let's see. Justin Gilland, welcome in from X, says, is center a concern? Sounds like something's going on. We'll do this. I'll come back to the running backs and things like that. Let's just jump into this question. To answer Justin's question, I don't necessarily think it's a true concern yet. I think what you're talking about is Tate Ratledge getting several reps at the starting center in a couple practices. So to answer this, I think we need to establish some depth at that position. Tate's been around. He's played a ton of games. You need that from him. And honestly, you need to find a backup. It sounds like, it sounds like Jared Wilson is slightly banged up, but I don't know what. I don't know. I think that's an internal staff going on? I don't really know. It sounds like there's a lot of people that don't know, right? But it's causing Tate to get a lot of reps, like Justin said as well. With that being said, it's not necessarily a bad thing because you do need the depth, but I do think it also opens you up to explore your best five in case of an injury, whatever the case may be. Somebody's got to do it. So you open yourself up that way. And honestly, I think it's something that we needed to do anyway. That's just where I'm at there with all that. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question there, Justin. I'm going to jump back to the running backs. And I think the biggest thing to take away so far, and there's several good pieces here. One, first things first, Branson Robinson, day one of training camp comes in, Kirby, at the press conference, a full go. We're going to monitor him, full go, things like that. And even today, I think they were doing full pads, right? And he's going and, just full pads, running, doing well, having good practices, even in 11-on-11 situations. That is crucial for Georgia this season, right? If you take a look 12 months ago, going into the season, right, the running back depth was alarming, right? Branson had had his injury. You have a freshman, Roderick Robinson, and you don't have the three running backs that you got, which we're going to get into in just a moment. And then you look at what happened last season, right? You're playing Roderick Robinson is your only true scholarship running back. You're playing Cash Jones, a true walk-on. You're playing Dylan Bell, a conversion from a receiver, right? Fast forward that 12 months, the depth at the running back position, you could argue this is as deep as a room we've had in years. Testament to Kirby Smart and that staff for getting that running back room situated. I'll tell you that. I know Jeff Hightoff earlier had mentioned Nate the Great, and that's Nate Frazier. Guys, I think Georgia got one. All things coming out, what we're hearing, really good practices. And he's a not even as early enrollee. He came in traditional. So he missed spring too. So he just got there technically. And he's already doing these things. I don't know how much rotation. I would expect him to get some rotation, based off of that. So you've got Branson coming off of the injury, 100%, or I wouldn't say 100%, full go, kind of monitoring him. Roderick Robinson, same thing. Roderick Robinson, great practices, consistent feels like. I'm here for that. I think we all should be. And even then, like I said, Nate Frazier, I haven't heard much about Chauncey Bowens. Haven't heard much about Dwight Phillips. You expect to get some run with them, but I think you're looking at those three, right? Those three. And then obviously Trevor Etienne, right? Really good transition from Florida here, having some great practices. I think he'll be, in my opinion, just fine in the passing game as well. So you have four running backs right there that you have confidence in. Again, 12 months ago, we're having a completely different conversation now compared to what we have now. And you have to take that for what it's worth. That's just a great feeling, right? Obviously, we'll transition to the receivers, right? Where how do you replace Ra Thomas? And I think a lot of that starts with you have to have, you move Dylan Bell into the X until Colby Young decides to, just so he can step up and take that X role. And it sounds like he's on his way. At one point, you hear people saying he's unguardable, right? Just taking the ball from people. That's a huge deal. It's a huge deal considering that's what we need right now at the X position. Someone that can go in, can catch contested catches, right? Pull the ball away. We saw it at G-Day. I'm going to revert back to G-Day, right, where he just snatched it in the end zone, snatched it away from, I think it was Julian, I believe. Might be wrong. My mind's slipping me at that point. Either way, DB comes in, he just pulls it right down. Boom, touchdown. So I think that's a big deal. And honestly, if Colby Young does step up, I think that's going to allow Dylan Bell to slide back into more traditional right Z or a slot receiver. I think you're going to have Dom in the slot, so you might see a traditional Z for Dylan Bell, and I think that'll benefit the offense as a whole. You're looking at guys like Arian Smith, great all season so far. Let's just say let's hope, shall we? The drops are a thing of the past, right? Past season. Let's hope. So far, so good. I think that's a big deal, right? Fifth year guy, right? Waited his turn. Now he's got to step up, right? There's also a guy behind him, Anthony Evans, who's you got to get some rotation in. He's got to get some rotation. He's got to get some targets designed for him. I think he's too good to be sitting on the bench, not getting run. You can't let that man sit on the bench this season. You have to design plays. If we saw what we saw in G-Day, what we've heard through the summer, you've got to get that man the ball too. Extremely deep room in regards to receivers. Not a lot of issues outside of the whole rah-rah situation, which for what it's worth that's a good thing at this point, right? A lot of bodies to feed, or a lot of hands, a lot of mouths to feed on that in that receiving core. It's going to be fun to watch this offense. We'll transition to the offensive line. We've already talked a little bit with Justin here earlier. Outside of the center position, I think it's pretty fair to say there's not a lot of movement, really. I think you're probably looking at Ernest Green at left tackle, Dylan Fairchild at left guard. The center, like we said, you're probably looking at Jared Wilson, probably have Tate backing him up if anything. And then obviously Tate at right guard. And then right tackle, you're looking at, for right now, Xavier Truss. And then I expect Monroe Freeling to get in. I expect him to play a lot. We'll see how the rotation looks, right? And I think you're going to see you'll see Michael Morris as well. Michael Morris has to get on the field. He's just too good. He's an NFL player sitting on the bench. And that's just a testament to how deep we are at our offensive line. Because you could really interchange him and Fairchild, and I don't think you would have any complaints out of me. And most of us will probably agree on that. I also think that you have to get Monroe Freeling in there. And while we sit there, and I've heard a lot of people, not necessarily feeling the greatest about Xavier Truss, I do think it's worth noting he's gotten lighter and his footwork has gotten better, right? While that's somewhat expected, considering how long he's been in the program, nonetheless, it's still a good sign. And at the same time, if Freeling takes over the spot, I feel confident because you could put Xavier Truss in a situation where you need to rotate out and be just fine. The experiences, you can't replace that. Even though I think Monroe Freeling is the better positioner. I think he's a better tackle prospect. But experience is key, and we have to accept that. You just have to. So far, so good. Haven't really heard any injuries there. I think you could look at Drew Bobo going back to center. And I know that name sounds kind of iffy, but at the same time, I think that's worth noting at the center position. Depends on if they put Tate there. Bobo, he's not the best player. I'm not going to sit here and insult your intelligence, but I do think he could be serviceable in the case of an emergency. Let's talk about freshmen. The Great Wall of Georgia, right, from this 2024 class. Sounds like Daniel Calhoun going to be that guy. But these guys I think are more for the future. It sounds like Daniel Calhoun lost several good weight. Nair Daniels lost a lot of weight. Right, so these guys are losing weight, getting stronger, getting in the system. These guys are going to be the future of this offensive line, and you're going to need them next year. Right now, they're getting a lot of reps, and that's good. Sounds like Calhoun's doing well. You also got Jazar Jackson, if you will, 6'10", 6'11", right? I think he's going to be you've got to develop him and let him play, but I think he's going to be just fine. So that's good to hear out of that as well. these freshmen are going to be key moving forward. But like I said, at the top, you're looking at 7, maybe even 8 that are going to be playing like that. And then after that, right now, these guys are just getting reps, right? Just taking advantage of the reps, understand, get stronger, do what you got to do, prepare for next year for the below, right? Watch out for a guy named Jamar Merriweather too. I think that's a name that goes unnoticed, but I think it needs to be known because moving, and I know we want to stick close to this year, but at the same time, I think this kid is a baller, and he's going to be a damn good tackle. Now, the question is, do you see him this year or do you see him more next year? That's to be determined, but I think regardless, you got a good one with Jamal Merriweather as well. Let's do this. I feel like that's enough offensive talk. And let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. And we'll start off with the defensive line. I think this is going to be fun because there's some freshmen that might not play a ton of snaps like that. But the freshman class is going to be fun to watch too. And you're looking at a couple of names just as early as today. Justin Green was a name you probably remember, but you might not remember as much as a guy like Joseph Jonah-Ajonye. Both of those guys flash, making plays consistently, right? When you look at the starters, right, you expect if we're looking at that right there, you're looking at probably, well, it depends on how you're setting up, but Warren Branson, Nazir Stackhouse, Michael Williams, Chaz Chambliss, Josh Jarrett, right? Then you got Christian Miller, Xavier McLeod. The depth is key, but you got to stay healthy, right? And right now you're dealing with injury to Warren Branson. Don't really know much about that, what the extent of it is, but I'm watching that one. I really am, because that's your leader. That's one of the leaders on that defensive line. However, I think if everyone, you got to stay healthy, but this depth that we've accumulated, I think is going to help us sustain a blow if it's as bad as, I don't think it's as bad, so I don't want to plant seeds there, but it's definitely worth monitoring for sure. Also, I just think that when you look at guys like Jordan Hall, right? Jordan Hall kind of had a stress fracture. How's that going, right? Expecting him maybe the first week, right? So he's going to be missing the fall camp. Fall camp's a big time for these guys to get reps and try to gain ahead, right? Gain some advantage and momentum as you move into the season. However, at the same time, I'm looking at it this way. It opens up opportunities, right? Xavier McLeod, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, right? And then obviously you got Jamal Jarrett, right? All these guys are trying to get run. Christian Miller. All these guys are trying to get run, get reps. It's kind of one of these things where you just got to have a next man up mentality, and it just sucks that it is. Those situations with Jordan Hall and Warren Branson, but at the same time, I feel confident that those guys are getting the reps, and we've got playmakers there, and that's something that we desperately need compared to what we saw last season with no depth. Right, depth was an issue, and we have to accept that. We saw it; we were getting pushed around. Can't let that happen again. And having those kind of bodies are going to be crucial to make sure that it doesn't. Right? Sounds like one of the first fall camps, Chalk gets into a scuffle with the offensive line. Listen, Jamal Jarrett's found himself. I think he found that dog, if you will, inside of him, and I think mentality-wise, he's ready to go. It's ready to go. I'm expecting a big season for him. Obviously, I think you're looking at him as being that true mint, right, nose tackle, that true zero, right, that true zero. Utilize him in run support, however you want to do it. But I think if you try to go mint 4.25, I think that's where you're going to see him get his run. And then I think you have to have a step up in a big season for Jamal. I think this is the year to do it, and I feel confident. I think he will do it, right? Knowing him personally, his work ethic's there. His work ethic is there. You just got to put it on paper and go. It's as simple as that. Xavier McLeod, I think you see a lot of run with him. I think you see a lot of it. again, I think the interior D line, I think it's going to be fun to see. Simple as that. Moving out a little bit, you got Michael, right? We've all known Michael is going to be a difference maker on this defense. I do not have any doubt in my mind that he's going to cause a lot of havoc this season. Great all season, playing the end, designing packages where he's out like playing jack. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun to watch. Yeah, we haven't had a double-digit sack guy in quite some time. Could this be the year that happens? Maybe. I don't know if I feel confident enough to say he gets double digits. I will say he causes a lot of problems with if the offensive or the defensive line does what they need to do, he will make an impact immediately, and a tremendous impact at that. I think you look at the situation behind him as well. Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker was our best pass rusher when he was on the field. And to grow, how do you get him on the field? You have to figure out a way to get him on the field. You want him to pass rush, and that's completely fine too. I just want to see him cover too. When he was in high school, up here in Salisbury, playing middle linebacker, he was just so fast, right? Like we've seen that. He was just so fast that you could rush him, but then at the same time, from the middle of the field, playing middle linebacker, he could cover sideline to sideline. That's why he ended up at Georgia. How does Glenn Schumann and the defensive staff get him on the field more, right? Or is it a situational type plays? We'll see. I just know that he's bound to have another good year. Just feel confident in that. I'm also looking at guys. Gabe Harris, if you're not familiar, go back to G-Day, right? Had a great, and I mean great, G-Day, I thought. Had several plays on one drive back to back, just playing harder than everybody else. Just harder than everybody else. That's how you get on the field. So I expect to see a big year from him. I genuinely think you'll see a big year out of him. Obviously, you got Chaz Chambliss. I think Chaz might take some snap reduction. And you got to get guys like Gabe Harris. I'd like to see Sam Mpemba. What kind of steps has he made from that freshman year to the sophomore year, right? We expected him to kind of take a year to learn and grow. Now's the time to see where we're at. Hasn't really had an issue there. But I think Gabe Harris was the best one. I mean, out of the three edge rushers, immediately was playing and was making plays. Damon Wilson, huge. Got big. Got bigger. You can see it. But he didn't lose the speed, didn't lose the bend. That is excellent news if you're a Georgia Bulldog fan. No, without a doubt. Without a doubt. You are absolutely loaded at the edge position, and there's no question about it. The question is now, how much havoc are you going to create? How much? I think there's more than enough to go around, because I think the potential is oozing out of this D line in the front seven easily. Right? Let's just see it happen. Right? We'll move on to the linebackers. Smile did not necessarily practicing yet, working his way back in. Expect him to be the guy. One of the guys, I should say. CJ Allen sounds like he's had a great spring or a great summer into the fall. Good G-Day. You feel confident with him being your Mike. And then the question is, Raylan Wilson, where you at? Raylan Wilson, Jalen Walker, however you want to play him. I think Raylan's going to step up and have a big contribution this year too. My question is, after that, what does that look like? Terrell Foster might be a name that maybe even Georgia fans might not remember or know of, but walk-on linebacker, playing snaps. He'll play some. He's going to play a lot this year. He's a good name to remember. You probably don't even know him. Take your time and do your research. You'll understand. Old buddies like that. This linebacker room is no question one of the deepest, right? I think I'm not going to insult your intelligence to sit here and say that we have the deepest linebacker room in the country. It's a fact. but you got the freshmen coming in. And I think I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. That's looking to be a fun group coming in the next year and everything. Justin Williams leading the charge there. Chris Cole, Chris Jones, guys, freakishly long. Justin Williams, freakishly fast. Cole is very good in coverage, right? He was the one that batted the ball down. He had a nice little pass breakup towards the end zone. Could have been a pick six as they called it, but he patted it down. The future is right there too. Surprise, surprise, right? And then obviously from a recruiting standpoint, you got Zayden Walker coming in next year. The rich get richer, right? Let's talk about secondary. Corners. Dalen Everett, I think, surefire number one. Having a damn good fall, damn good summer. Had an off season, really good, right? Now that he is the guy. You needed that. A lot of people want to give him shit from last year, but you got to also understand it was a trial by fire with him because Kamari Lassiter was shutting everything down. Who else were you going to throw to? You had to get him. He had to learn. He had to grow that way. And while it sucks watching him get passes called on him, guess what? You develop, you get better, and that's what's happening so far this season. It sure as sucked last season. Guess what? When you have Kamari Lassiter, ain't nobody stupid going to throw that ball over that his way. You just get it passed, get it broken up, or you pick, right? We've seen that too much. And it didn't matter for Kamari either. Kamari could go anywhere, but you saw what happened in Missouri. Is locking down Luther Burden. It opened up Dalen Everett, but now I think you sit there going into the season, the number one guy, and then the huge battle is for two, and that's Daniel Harris, Julian Humphrey. Love both of them, what they bring. The question is, are we even going to have a true number two, or do you see a rotation? Don't know. Like the physicality for Daniel Harris. I love coverage from Julian Humphrey. So when it comes to that, the cornerback two is wide open. Just even today, Daniel Harris had a really good practice, but he took the ones. But then you look at the situation taking the twos. You got Julian Humphrey and Ellis Robinson on the twos. Don't forget Ellis Robinson, guys. It's a name you can't forget. DB room's going to be just fine. You just got some inexperience behind those three. But they're great. They're going to be great. Ellis Robinson is going to be great. Love what Chris Pill brings to the table. Right? You've got some guys easily. Some of those guys are just inexperienced. But Ellis Robinson's going to be knocking on somebody's job. He's going to knock on the door and get some run. You know this. They'll rotate. How much? Then you look at the safety position. No brainer. Malachi starts. And then you got Dan Jackson. But there is a name, and that's KJ Bolden. And to me, it just gets this feeling of it's only a matter of time. Dan Jackson is very serviceable. We've known this. We've known it. But I think it's inevitable to sit here and not see that KJ Bolden is the future of that room. And I'm just looking right now. It would not. I don't see him starting maybe week one, but I think you're on the same trajectory of playing time in the path of Malachi. If he starts, and he's had a damn good off season to this point, which leads me to believe it's only a matter of time. Now the question is how fast? How fast can he get ready? I'm not going to sit here and sleep on other guys though. I'm not sleeping on Jake Pope. I think Jake Pope can contribute too. Bennett Bama. That Bama secondary is basically a mirror image of what Georgia does. All right? What he does. Obviously, Malachi is Malachi. I don't see him coming off the field unless he's either hurt or I just don't see it. But you're going to have a situation where, and I applaud Dan Jackson. I do. Buddy has put his heart and soul into this team that you cannot ask any more than that. But he's went above and beyond on that. But I just think it's only a matter of time before KJ takes over. I just do. There's some other safeties that I think will probably be better at star. We'll talk about that now. I think Jonel Aguero's feeling pretty confident that he's got the job down. I haven't heard any complaints about it, right? There was some hesitation if he was going to get it. Not hearing that anymore. I think he's got it. But don't sleep on a guy like Ja'Cory Thomas either. Don't do it. I think Ja'Cory Thomas, he will be an impactful player when he's on the field. You'll see. Really good player. Just a really good player. I think you'll see him back him up at the star, but you've also got a guy like Kyron Jones that can play star as well, right? It's a deep room, just maybe not as experienced as a guy like Tyke Smith, right? We were all about Tyke Smith. At the same time, I genuinely think, if Jonel Aguero gets it, there you go. I think you look at if I had to choose and make a prediction right now, I think you have in the secondary. I think you're looking at a situation of Dalen Everett and probably Julian Humphrey, even though I think my heart tells me Daniel Harris, but my body tells me Julian Humphrey. Either way, you got Malachi, Dan to start. I don't think it takes too long to see Malachi and KJ rolling the safeties back there. Then you got Aguero and Ja'Cory Thomas backing them up. I think that's a damn good secondary. I do. When you're looking at Clemson, I think you're going to be set. There's a lot of games there where you're going to get tested. I feel confident about that, though. I really do. It's going to be interesting to see how the losses of Kamari, the loss of Tyke, right, Javon Bullard, how's that going to impact? The talent is not a question at all. At all. There you go with that. Now, special teams. Listen, special teams. I don't think the punter and kicker situation, I'm going to do it because I got Kobe. But Peyton Woodring's back. Obviously, you feel confident there. I thought he had a great freshman season, right? Hit some clutch shots. Needed that. Brett Thorson, arguably the best punter in America, even though he's from Australia. I think he's transitioning well to being an American. Jokes aside, I think punter kicker, you're more than set. And I think in crucial moments in a game that I think it could come down to a missed field goal, I think you feel confident walking out Woodring. I just do. Also, I think this is going to be fun. Punt return. It's Anthony Evans, but you've also seen several guys getting run back there. I just think that it's time to unleash Anthony Evans. If you can't get him all the time on the field at receiver, this is the best way to, show his skill set, if you will. I thought he had just last season. Thought he was explosive when he had the ball in his hands. I thought it was fun to watch. It was exciting, right? That's a big deal moving forward, right? Because nobody wants to talk about special teams until it costs you. Right, you make mistakes in the special teams game, all shit goes down south from there, right? You can also, the momentum can swing easily with special teams. We saw that with him against Alabama. We saw this at G-Day. I think you see that transition over. Will he score a punt return touchdown? I don't know. That's hard to say, but definitely worth watching because I think you're going to see some electricity there, and that's a good feeling. Really good feeling. Really, really good. Talking off about our fall camp. I do want to mention that Georgia did get another recruit to commit, and that is Juan Gaston. I don't want to talk about Juan Gaston. Listen, that is a crucial piece in that offense for that offensive line. That is a massive get. A massive get. Westlake product, right? I think he's like 6'6", 6'7", 345, 350. Another chunk in the wall, right? Just another fat-ass brick in the wall. You needed him. He was a big get. He was probably the biggest get for this offense in the offensive line recruiting class, and you land him. All things aside, though, it did have you sweating a little bit, not knowing where he was going to go, right? You had your feeling that it was going to be Georgia. Ultimately, it was Georgia. But leading up to that commitment, there was silence, very quiet. Kind of made me reminisce on the old times before social media and all the crystal balls were a thing, right? Didn't know. You genuinely didn't know. And that brought the excitement, right? It came with extra emotions. More upset if you didn't land them, but just full of joy when you do land them, right? It's kind of what that felt like. Kind of brought back the nostalgia of an old recruiting, kind of an old commitment, old recruiting style. Love that kind of stuff, I thought. But obviously, nonetheless, you do get him. Like I said, that's one of the biggest gets for this offensive line in the class. I think he was one of the biggest ones to get, right? You had Donnie Glover, probably your center player, and then Cortez. Well, I'd say Donnie would probably be more of a guard, but Cortez would probably be a true center, if you will, from an eval standpoint. But Juan Gaston is probably the biggest need out of your in-state prospects there on the offensive line out of the three, and you got them, all three. Bravo, Stacey Searles. You just added more bulk to that line. There ain't gonna be no damn question. It feels like now. Obviously, time will tell. But Dogs land another commit with Juan Gaston. That's a big, guys. Don't underestimate that. I'm sure most of you know, but I'm just here to tell you that's a big deal. It's a big deal. Want to make sure while we got as many people here, whether you're on Twitter, whether you're on YouTube, make sure to like this, react, comment. We'll read comments as we go along too. Like, follow, subscribe. If you're listening on podcast, Apple, Spotify, give us a rating, give us a review. Let us know what you think, right? Season's ramping up. Obviously, you can tell a little bit of a different time situation for the live show portion. We'll be doing some Thursday stuff. But once the season starts, guys, we'll be back at 2 shows a week, getting you ready for, the 2024 season with the playoffs and stuff. And speaking about 2024 season, I do think this is something worth talking about. Cedric Baxter, Texas running back, suffered a torn, I think it was PCL, MCL, and out for the season. And then under the initial thought, obviously, you don't want to see injuries, right? Especially in fall camp. It sucks. Been there before. But to me, that Texas game got interesting. Is that going to force Texas to have to throw more? All right, I feel like the recipe to beat Georgia is to go vertical. Without Baxter there, arguably, it changes the dynamic of that game. Part of me understands that's a crucial playmaker on their offense. That could be a huge deciding factor in that game. If you can't run the ball against Georgia, that's a big problem. Big problem. However, if the offensive line for Texas were to protect, right, if they were able to protect Quinn Ewers and try to get them to go vertical, do they do that? Are there issues there for Georgia? All right, I felt confident for the longest time that I think Georgia's offense has success in Austin. I do. And I think defensively we create enough havoc and pressures and get to Quinn enough to cause the game to go a certain way. But what with Cedric Baxter being out and the dynamic there, because Texas lost a lot of attempts at the running back position, just losing him. That's a huge deal when it comes to a game, something like this. Texas isn't going to be versed into the SEC just yet. They're working their way. This will be their first year. You'll see what happens. Does it force them to be vertical, though? And that's what I'm curious about. How does that game change? Let me know what you think, but I think you could easily see a situation. They go more vertical. They do. I'm reading some extra comments. Fanatic Sports, punter and kicker, both on the award watch list. I want Anthony Evans and Michael Jackson the third in the return game. Yeah, that's another name I think he's having a good season at receiver, just kind of under the rate, like I guess with the bodies there. Um, and then also, when are they going to announce the times of the home games versus Mississippi State, Auburn, Tennessee? Coming from Cali to see my first ever Dogs game in person, want to see it at night. I think those three might be your flex games, Jeff. I think you won't know until a couple weeks out, maybe. I think those are the ones, depending on the games and the records and things like that. You'll see how that changes. But we'll see there. Part of me thinks the Auburn game, with it being homecoming, could be a good chance for a night game. I genuinely think with us transferring over the SEC into the ABC, ESPN stuff, that does open a big matchup for primetime slots. However, you'd have to look at that week schedule because I think there's other big time games, but just who is it for that in regards to how you would dictate that. So I can't really say, but I would say at the very worst, continue to watch out for it and go from there. That's what I would look at. Honestly, if you want my opinion, I think Auburn, because you'll have Auburn right after Alabama. If we beat Alabama, I think Auburn has the potential to be undefeated coming into Athens, and that would set up a night game, in my opinion, especially with it being homecoming. However, the homecoming, I also don't necessarily know if they want to do stuff early in the day. Most of the homecoming games you see are noon kicks, which I don't think an Auburn game with that. I just don't see that being a noon game. I hope not, anyways. That, like I said, Auburn. I think if you had to rate out of the three that you listed, I'm looking at Auburn, Tennessee, Mississippi State in that order. Might be wrong. That's just where I'm at with it, Jeff. I do want to go back while we talked about that. Talked about Cedric Baxter injury, kind of changing the dynamic of this. Jeff also mentioned earlier in the show over under 1/2 of a touchdown, right? 0.5 touchdown for Nate Frazier versus Clemson. And honestly, and this will be one of the first ones of the season, I genuinely think you could see him score a touchdown against them. I really do. I'm not going to talk into context as to why I think that. I'm just going to leave it short, and I'd say I'd take the over on that to see what the interest inside of the bet on that would be, because I do think that'd be interesting for sure. So also, like I said earlier in the show too, I'll reiterate this because this is a big deal, guys. Also do want to point out our game day giveaway with our friends over at Alumni Hall, right? Like I said, just go to our Twitter account at the DGD Podcast, or you can go to our website, dgdpodcast.com. Go there, and you can go and it'll give you the way to go to it and everything. It'll give you all the details. Pretty simple, but you get a free a shot to win a $100 gift card if you can guess the score and the winner, things like that. I'll let you check the post out yourself. But yeah, that's a big deal. So go check that out, dgdpodcast.com or our Twitter account. And enter today through now, from now through August 31st. While I got everybody, you don't see the Apotheos, and I want to thank Apotheos for years of partnership. Like, great coffee. Love their coffee, love them. But we have decided, I think they're moving on to a different path, right? So this opens up the coffee aspect of things. So it's going to be interesting to see how Jittery Joe's is going to be. I'm going to try this tomorrow. My little attack of the day. I'm going to give you a heads up on that. Looking forward to it, by the way. And if you're not familiar with Jittery Joe's, I'm sure who are. If you are, let me know. I'm looking forward to this. I loved everything Apotheos brought from coffee. And I know we're going to kind of get on our tangent here. But I think Jittery Joe's will be good stuff. If you've had Jittery Joe's, comment below. Let me know. But I'm looking forward to it. And they got the cool cans too, right? And I know they're Athens, Georgia based as well. So this is awesome too. But yeah, we are coffee free agents. So it's going to be interesting how this works. But at the same time, like I said, I'm looking forward to Attack Today. Figuratively, literally, we'll give that a shot and see what happens. I'll have to have to let you know y'all know how I am. Love my coffee. Got to get it every day. But with that being said, just want to make sure, speaking of Alumni Hall, I do want to mention, just go follow them at social medias here at Alumni Hall UGA on Twitter, Instagram. Go follow them, enter the giveaway they're doing, being super generous with that. And on that note, we hope you'll have a great rest of your day, your morning, your evening, whenever you're watching, listening. Make sure to have a great day.